Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the 143, the virtual one, episode 112. We're coming at you live. Nick is the man sitting on, I think, my right.
The other side of Joseph, we got a doozy for you. NBA versus the NHL. If you can't tell from Joseph's wonderful banner that he put up at the bottom of the screen, just discussing, how today's game, how they differ from each other, just the toughness levels. These are two sports we don't normally touch on, but we're going to do that today.
This is what the offseason's for, man. This is for us to get our stuff out there. I'm an NBA guy. Nick's an NHL guy. Obviously, we love the Dallas teams, the Mavs, and the Stars, but we follow these leagues separately. But we got to divide and conquer here at Under Review. Can't follow everything. We got to make sure that at least one of us knows what's going on in all these different leagues, aside from the NFL and the MLB. But I went on a little bit of a rant last week about toughness in the NBA. And as you all know, the NHL is very different from that. And so Nick's going to give us the NHL side. I'm going to give you the NBA side. And we're just going to compare the two. That's what we're doing this week. So let's start us off with the stat of the week, brought to you by Andrews Logistics. Let's take a trip to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine this past weekend, where Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas, broke the record for the 40-yard dash with a time of 4.21 seconds. Fastest 40-yard dash time in Combine history. Doesn't mean he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but it does mean he's going to get drafted pretty high. So 40-yard dash is pretty much the biggest thing they look at in the
receiver department. Obviously, that's going to help your draft stock, showing off all that talent and speed, which is what the Combine's for. You show up in front of NFL scouts, NFL teams. You're going up against kind of other players, seeing how you match up with those measurables or whatever. And so, contrary to popular belief, we got some players that see no need for the Combine. They're just gonna, hey, whatever happens in the draft. But that'll be a topic for another time as we get closer to April. We'll give you our draft. Yeah, you know who we're talking about. Okay, y'all know exactly who
it's a little sneak peek for April.
Exactly, just a little trailer. So now I'm going to give you the player of the week, who is, in light of this hockey NBA episode, I thought I'd just go ahead and, give you the GOAT of hockey, arguably the greatest offensive player ever in sports. I mean, that's an opinion out there for sure. Some people think that.
It could be.
Just letting you know.
Could be.
It's a 4-time Stanley Cup winner. The Wayne Gretzky leads the league in offensive points. You take away every goal he ever scored, he still leads the league in points, which is mighty impressive. You look up any offensive stat, he's got it. Most 100-point seasons with 15, most 200-point seasons with 4, and the only player with 200-point seasons. So everything he did was absolutely incredible. Like I said, you look up any offensive stat you want, he's the owner of it. He is the GOAT of that sport. You look up some highlights of him on YouTube, he just makes everyone look foolish. So there you go, your player of the week.
Yeah, got to give respect to the GOAT of the NHL and in Wayne Gretzky. And just like a lot of the other GOATs, probably never see another one like him. So got to appreciate the greatness where you can find it. Let's jump in. All right, here we go. NBA and physical toughness. Let me tell y'all briefly what I'm talking about, okay? Now, I covered it. I hit on it last week, but our topic wasn't on this. There is a big lack of physical toughness in today's NBA game. Now, we're not talking about just all the NBA. We're talking about today's game as well as the NHL as today's game. The NBA lacks toughness in two areas, okay? Number one, they lack toughness in the way that they don't want to play these regular season games. There's only one league that's had to implement a rule to where you have to play at least 65 of the 82 regular season games to where if you do that, at least 65, you are eligible for off-season awards. So like the regular season awards, like the MVP, like the NBA All-Star and All-NBA type stuff like that. That's if you play 65 games. They had to implement that as a rule because guys were trying to sit all the time and not play all the regular season games. You had guys playing 50 of the 82 regular season games, which is almost half. They're getting paid millions of dollars to play these NBA games, and they don't want to because they're tired, and they play every other night, every couple of nights, every other night. That's one area where the physical toughness isn't there. Now, number two is on the court during the game when they actually do decide to play. There's no defense. They don't want to guard. And then when they are trying to score and they get touched on a shot, they fall to the ground like somebody just shoved them or threw them down on the ground or something. They just, they want to get a foul call. And it's becoming a lot like soccer. And yeah, I said soccer because there is no physical toughness in soccer. And the NBA is looking a lot like soccer right now. And I have had it. Okay. You shouldn't have to incentivize these guys to play the sport that they do for a living more than the money that they're making. That is the incentive. This is your job. You go out there and you play and you try to win a championship. But these guys, they're just out here, they're stat chasing. They're not wanting to play defense because defense, that's not a stat that you look for. You're looking for points and assists. You're looking for those triple doubles that come on mostly offense. So that's where the physical toughness in the NBA is lacking. And there's a lack of drive for guys even wanting to play their own sport. So that's my NBA spiel. Nick, why don't you take it away?
It's like everything Joseph said, right on the money. It's pathetic. They're the only league that you have to convince your players on top of paying them millions of dollars to play their sport. Like it makes zero sense to me. I couldn't tell you. And then with the physical toughness thing, this day and age has been equated to the flop era. Mm-hmm. You see that word get thrown around, and it's like, a player goes up for a shot or something, and they get tapped on the arm or on the hand, and you'd have thought they got shot in the side of the head or something like that. It's just players falling to the ground off of, any contact, and it's just, for me, this is just my personal opinion. That's just boring to watch. If you ask me that,
I'll tell you who the greatest of all time at flopping is. You want to GOAT? You want to call him the GOAT? You can call him the GOAT when it's talking about flopping. It's LeBron James, okay? And he's he's honestly one of the biggest reasons that there's a lot of flopping.
He was he was like one of the first ones.
He was one of the first ones. He did it all the time, and he still does. So
they nicknamed him Le Flop.
He's not the GOAT of basketball, but he is the GOAT of flopping. And that go to basketball conversations, we'll have that another time. We've already had it, but it'll pop up again. But King James is the one who started all of this, and I appreciate the flop from him. Not really.
So, despite that, there is a league of blood, sweat, and tears that just gets it on
of men
every night that basketball is on. And if you're a true sports fan, you're tuned into it over the NBA. Yeah, that's right. I said it. I'll form controversial opinions here on this one. I don't care.
That's what we do.
Hockey is just a different breed. It's actually the only sport where fighting is almost encouraged, because you only in other leagues, you get suspended for multiple games for fighting. Whereas in hockey, you get suspended for a whopping 5 minutes. And then you get to go back into the game, and you can do it again if you want to, because that's how obviously the sport's not based around that. But that's one of the distinct qualities people look at, like from the outside looking in. But the toughness is there. You can think of there's plenty of, examples. A common one that got really highlighted last year was when there was a player for the Winnipeg Jets by the name of Morgan Barron, who he took a skate to the top of his eye, cuts his eyebrow wide open. He starts gushing blood. They take him back to the training room, stitch him up with 75 stitches, and like 20 minutes later, he's back out on the ice playing again, getting in on his shift. Like, these are guys that are just absolute freaks of nature that they just don't care. They're just throwing their body around. Another a big phenomenon that's happening right now is this kid by the name of Matt Rempe. He's this big old dude that came up with the New York Rangers. They called him up a couple weeks ago, and dude, all he's been doing is just throwing his body around, fighting people. He's been in the league for like 3 weeks, and his face is black, red, and purple. I mean, it's absolutely electric to watch. Just some of the things that these players do, and it's more entertaining to watch, if you ask me, in the NBA. The pace of play is out of this world. It's a lot quicker than most other sports. It is a little. I don't want to. It's not low scoring, but it's not necessarily how some people would see as high scoring. It's more high scoring than soccer. Okay, that's for sure. Not as high scoring.
It's because the goal is, the goalie's 2 sizes times the goal. So I mean, it's difficult to score.
Exactly.
But the pace is very quick. It's not soccer where it's very slow. And the goal is also in soccer, the goal is like 10 times larger than the goalie, and they still can't put it in. So
another thing is, like, these dudes are, they're ripping this puck like 90 or so miles an hour. You see a guy rip a slap shot, just an absolute clap bomb. Some of those are getting up to like 95, even 100, if they can get enough power into it. And it makes for more entertaining sports to watch. I think it's one of the best sporting events you can go to live. Like, if you have the chance to go to a game, obviously, I'd say absolutely go to it. You're getting your money's worth when you go out there. It's one of the most electric playoffs of any sporting event. It's one of the coolest. You get one of the coolest trophies out there, the Stanley Cup, Lord Stanley, as some call it. It's just this absolute mammoth. And if you ask me, the NHL is way better than the NBA. That's just my personal opinion.
I mean, I agree. That's what I've been saying. Lately I found myself when there's a choice between watching an NBA game or an NHL game, I'll be watching the NHL game. Lately the NHL has been winning me over because, and not that I've always loved the NHL, but it's just like I've always liked basketball more. And I'm just disgusted with the NBA. I mean, I watched the playoffs last season. They had guys sitting out at halftime. They were done for the rest of the game because they wanted to save them for the next game. Nick, let me ask you a question. Do the NHL guys ever try to sit out for one of their games during the season? They ever rest guys? Is that a thing? Is that a rest? They rest guys
if they can't move, if they're injured, yeah, absolutely, they'll get rested. But if they have the ability to play, they're gonna play.
See, exactly. And that's in the regular season, okay? And that's because they get paid to play. That's what they do. That's their job. And most of them love their job, and they love the sport that they're playing, which is why they're playing it. And so in the NBA, it's like guys will throw a fit if they make them play when they don't want to play. It's like you should always want to play, or at least know you have to. And that's how sports works.
That's your job.
Well, like we said before, the NBA is the only league where it's like, you don't want to play tonight? Like, it's okay. Sit on the bench. Like these are their star players. These are the reason they're winning games.
There's this term that gets thrown around called load management or whatever in the NBA. And that's just like, that's basically
all that is. Way of saying they didn't want to play.
Sitting a player without a reason, basically. He's healthy, but he's not playing, is all that says. And there's no other, that just doesn't happen in other leagues.
No, it doesn't. And I love watching the NFL. I do love watching the NFL. I love watching the NHL. I love watching dudes just go at each other. The fights are electric. That's what makes the sport, if we're being honest. The physicality, the physical toughness is what makes the NHL the NHL. Without that, you wouldn't have.
And also, to the flip side, is one thing hockey has that is good for it is they make it to where you can't flop, because it's actually there's a penalty in hockey. It's a rare one. I can't think of, and I've seen it this year. I remember seeing it one time last year, but it's this penalty called embellishment. That's where you get a 2-minute minor for flopping, essentially. So it's like they have a rule to where essentially you can't flop, and it's the complete polar opposite, of the NBA,
So they
right?
actually no, they actually instituted that rule in the NBA this season,
Oh, did they?
because they were getting a lot of criticism, like we're giving them right now, about that. And so what they did was they instituted the rule, but the rule it never gets
But
called.
no one's enforcing it. Yeah.
It's there, but it never gets called. It was just to save face from the public because the NBA, and it's not just us, man. It's getting ridiculous. Like people are so tired of these. I'll give you an example. Sunday, Warriors versus Celtics in the Garden, in Boston. I mean, the Celtics are number one in the East. They're number one in the NBA. They're the best team right now. And the Warriors are the Warriors. They have Steph Curry. They're this historic dynasty they still have their guys together. And it's on prime time. It's on ABC. It's the afternoon game. It's the primetime game in the NBA. And at halftime, the Warriors were down 44 points, and they sat their starters for the rest of the game, and so did the Celtics. And the Celtics ended up winning by 52. That was the whole game. That was on prime time.
Wow,
And
what a doozy.
yeah, and it was ridiculous because neither team was trying after the first quarter because the Warriors gave up and the Celtics knew they'd already won the game because the Warriors gave up. And that's the problem that we're facing. And this is not just happening in the regular season. It's happening in the playoffs when they start losing one of the games big. They're like, we're sitting the guys waiting till the next game since they're 7-game series. And it's ridiculous because that's why, when you turn on an NHL game, you're getting full effort no matter what the score is it's 60 minutes of playing time, right? That's correct. 60 minutes of playing time. And so, unlike the NBA where it's only 48 minutes and they still can't even do it.
It's a different dynamic of how that sport, of how the NHL works versus the NBA is, you get shifts of players, where, your guys are only on for a minute or two at a time. And then they go to the bench and they make a line change and they get new guys on. And so it's just different because, everyone on the bench is playing, minus the backup goalie, but everyone's playing, so it's not like basketball where you could have your 5 guys play like 90% of the game. Obviously you have your guys that are going to play the most, but everyone is, getting ice time. So you do get, I would guess more breaks than you would in the NBA, but that doesn't let you sit players at the end of the game.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You're seeing your star players play the whole game, whether, they're up by 6 or they're losing by 6,
Yeah. Here's what I would say to the NBA because basketball is an awesome sport. Like this is no shade on the sport of basketball, but the NBA has been losing money. If you want to, stay relevant, which they're trying to do, my advice, would be to make the game more physical, more tough, because right now I could go play in the NBA because I'd get wide open looks. I mean, there's no defense. And honestly, I could go out there and act like I got hit. Like, it's not that hard what they're doing right now. And they're really good. These guys, these star players, man, in the NBA, they're really good at what they do. But there's got to be defense. And you obviously see a little bit more in the playoffs, but it's got to be improved all around if you even want to keep the NBA going, because it has been losing viewership, and there's got to be something that gets done. But what I would say, man, if anybody gets an opportunity to go to a hockey game, got to go to a hockey game. It is a lot of fun. It is an electric environment.
If you ask me, obviously way better than the NBA. Like Joseph said at the beginning, I've never really personally been an NBA guy. Obviously, I understand the ploy. There's a lot of flair and showmanship in that game, whereas it's just you just want to grind when you're in hockey, right? I understand the ploy to the game, but just in terms of watching a quality sport, I think you're going to find that more in the NHL. If you ask me, that's just personal.
NBA. One last point for me, and then I'm good. But the NBA is a player league. It's focused on the players. It's not about the teams. These players are all over the place. I mean, pretty much every other league is about the team. You know, you're rooting for the team. It's very hard to root for the team when they're moving guys around.
It's truly a team sport, you know, because you can have your 3 or 4 stars, but like if you don't have complete depth from roster spot 1 to roster spot like 20, you know, that's the difference between being a playoff team and not being a playoff team, right? Yeah. Whereas in the NBA, it's a little bit different where if you've got 3-4 guys, I mean, you'll be chilling for, you know, the rest of the season. And so that's just, hey, that's our spill for the week.
Sure, man. The NBA's got to get better. NHL, y'all need to. It's one of those sports that's definitely gaining popularity right now. Honestly, it's with the NBA like losing viewership, the NHL is kind of gaining a lot more. It's getting more into the light, man. So anybody that's listening, you know, go watch a hockey game. It's a good experience.
Absolutely. So here's like to end our shows and under review. Brought you a quote from, it's a basketball player, believe it or not. But this was back in the era of, you know, when they played, when they really played the game.
Would you say it's the GOATS era?
It was a smidge after that. Okay. This is from Tim Duncan. Okay.
That
was early
By the way,
2000s.
Tim Duncan, defensive phenomenon. Just saying.
Yes.
That was back when they played defense.
That word is a myth nowadays to the NBA. But he said the time when there is no one to feel sorry for, the time when there is no one to feel sorry for you or to cheer you on is when a player is made. And that's the truth.
That is the truth. We hope that y'all have a good week, and we'll actually be bringing you a March Madness episode next week.
It's getting near that time.
It is that time next week.
It is basically that time, actually.
Yeah. Selection Sunday is this Sunday. They will have the brackets out, and we'll give y'all an episode on that and just what to look for, what teams to look for next week. But thank you for tuning in this week. See you next week with another episode of Under Review.